Well, again, welcome everyone to today's workshop and session. It's so lovely to see so many of you here today. I think we're going to have a fun session. Now, a little bit of intro, naturally. I'm Manana. It's lovely to meet you all. Again, thank you for hosting me. Now, to share a bit about my background, I have a bachelor's degree in educational and developmental psychology and a master's degree in educational neuroscience from London. And a lot of my experience comes from working at, well, one of Elon Musk's offshoot startups, an online education program for teens, much like Morphosis, but Morphosis is a lot more oriented towards, conversation, dynamics, and discussions, which is also a lot of what we're going to do today. And just to set expectations, I mean, this workshop is going to be, well, much like any workshop, really, it's going to be as fun and as enjoyable as, well, you want it to be, and it's going to be as engaging as you jump into the conversation. So please do, I want you to feel energized, I want you to feel empowered, I want you to jump in discussion, share your opinions. I'm personally very interested in all the ideas that you come up with. And now I'm passionate about education and development because I'm very privileged to have experienced a lot of different kinds of education, delivery, both in terms of teaching as well as learning. So I'm very passionate about the subject, and I'm particularly keen on discussing the interdisciplinarity and cross-disciplinarity in various domains like education, like psychology, medicine, etc. And that's going to be the theme of today. Interdisciplinarity and cross-disciplinarity both are extremely important for all the roles that you come from, because true knowledge can arise only in the combination and in the synthesis of multiple different disciplines, right? Because none can exist uniquely and separately from the rest. For example, in psychology, naturally you have the science, right? You have the sociology, the more about how you deal with people. Then you have ethics. You need to combine all of these disciplines to actually produce knowledge and information that's useful and applicable to whatever case the discussion might be about. So once again, and finally, welcome to today's session. We're going to discuss, allow me to start sharing my screen so that we can all follow along the presentation. One moment. Here we go. All right, perfect. So today it's going to be a lot about, as I mentioned, discussion. It's going to be scenario based, or we're going to have a lot of, well, we have a lot of fun topics in store. This is a general outline of what the session is going to look like. We're going to start by getting to know one another. We're going to familiarize ourselves with what soft skills are, but I estimate that most of you have already acquired some experience or some understanding of what soft skills are in general, but I will just give you some broad strokes to make sure we're all on the same page. We're going to define the problems for 3 different scenarios, and we're going to explore these scenarios and make sense together. Now, without further ado, there's one interesting question that I would like to pose, and whatever you're comfortable with, if you're comfortable with unmuting and sharing it directly to everyone, please do so. If you prefer to use the chat, go ahead and use the chat. But the first question I want to ask you is, what aspect of your personality do you think is most useful for your chosen profession or your chosen, well, major direction, however you want to think of this question? While you all think about this, if you can type it in the chat, please do. We want to make this as active and interactive as possible. I'm going to share my own. I think that for my chosen profession, okay, I like it. The ideas are coming in. For my chosen profession, there's many aspects of my personality that are very useful, but the first and foremost is growth mindset, is what I would phrase it as. It's a combination of a lot of different skills and a lot of different perspectives, but keeping this growth mindset, understanding that, first of all, you cannot be all-knowing, right? You always keep an open mind to new perspectives. You always keep an open mind to potential growth and learning new information. That's definitely one of the biggest things that's most useful for me. I love the words that are being written in the chat: determination, collaboration, curiosity, analytical aspect of personality, wonderful, enthusiasm and zeal, great words, integrated mind, passion for learning. These are perfect. These are exactly the kinds of things that I would expect from people that are coming from your line of work, right? You need the persistence, you need to be analytical. Now, all of these that you wrote, these are personality traits, but naturally they're also soft skills that can be cultivated. So again, as I promised to give you broad strokes, soft skills is essentially an umbrella term for all kinds of people skills, all kinds of social skills, and everything that you wrote in the chat, these personality aspects, so to say, these are all skills. These are skills that don't come from books. They don't come from things that you can read typically. They don't come from it's something that you cultivate through experience, trial and error, human communication, and just generally human experiences. And also, coincidentally, most of these things that you have mentioned so far, this passion for learning, enthusiasm, curiosity, collaboration, all of these things also play into interdisciplinarity. Again, that's going to be the main theme and topic of today's discussion, is to understand how these different disciplines align and how you can do better at integrating these disciplines, or integrating disciplines in general into your own line of work. Now we're going to have a fun activity. I personally love discussion games, and I think they're a wonderful way to get to know one another. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch a video, and now it's going to be a conundrum video, but let's see if I can share sound as well. It's going to be a conundrum video. A side challenge to actually coming up with an answer to this conundrum is going to be at the end. I will write it in the broadcast, but I'm just giving you a heads up. I want you to come up with how this conundrum can be translated into your own line of work. So first, we're going to spend roughly, well, it's only a 1 minute long video. We're going to watch the video. Then you'll have 10 minutes to actually talk about the conundrum. And then you'll have 5 minutes to connect it to your line of work. I'm going to play the video. Christine, could you let me know if the audio works properly? Thank you.
All right, I've got a question for you. Imagine this. One day, an ancient treasure is found using a translated map. 3 people helped to make this discovery, but who should get the most treasure? Option A, the researcher. The researcher dedicates their whole career to searching for the hidden map before finding it in an unlikely place. Option B, the translator. Once the map is found, the translator is the only one on the planet who can decode the symbols on the map. Option C, the treasure hunter. The treasure hunter uses the translated map and takes many risks and overcomes great challenges to find the treasure. So, who do you think gets the greatest share of the treasure? Are you team researcher, team translator, or team treasure hunter?
So very simple video, I know, but I wrote the 3 options. Oops, sorry about that. I wrote the 3 options in the chat. Now, I'm going to break this apart into breakout rooms. Remember what you came up with, well, what you got from the video so far. And yeah, let's see what you come up with. At the end of the 10 minutes, I want you all, each group, to have one answer. All right, welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, so hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
So
Michael.
we all went for research. So the research group is what we are looking at of getting the highest price. You get me?
Yes, we could hear you. Totally, Michael. So Michael's team, I think it was group 5 or 4, went for researcher. 5. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I know for a fact that I think Isra, I hate mispronouncing people's names. So if you hear me mispronounce your name, you are legally obligated to tell me and correct me.
No, don't
So-
worry. You pronounced it right.
Thank you. So I know that I heard that your team came up with a different answer. So let's take 5 minutes to just talk about the scenario a little bit, because something that I heard, if Efrain, something I heard.
Ephraim, yeah.
Ephraim, perfect. Thank you. Good. I like this. Okay, so something I heard Ephraim say is, and this is also something that I heard multiple teams say actually, is the fact of the matter is that these three teams, right? We have the researcher, the translator, the treasure hunter. They don't exist independently. We can all agree on that, right? The work would not get done if these three did not work together. Because you need someone to find it, you need someone to translate it, you need someone to go take the risk and go get it. Now, regardless of that, someone still, realistically, still gets a bigger cut. With that in mind, we have 1 vote for the researcher. Isra, what did your team come up with? I don't know if you chose a
So-
speaker, someone else
So
can.
our team
Yeah.
went for the treasure hunter, the one who actually does the work. Yeah. And we had the discussion about how each of them are like they play their role in the whole process.
Anna Marie, did your team come up with the same answer or different?
I think I was the one that had a conflicting opinion that the translator should get the highest, because if they do all their research and discover the treasure and there's no translator to make sense of it, then to be worthless. But since they are separate entities, I felt the translator should get the most, but the majority of us agreed on the researcher.
I love this diversity of opinions. That's what makes this conundrum, this really simple, right, animated, 1 minute long conundrum, so complex and so interesting. Now, if this were real life, right, if this were real life, still talking about this same scenario, if this were real life, which of those three do you think would get the biggest cut, right? Given the fact that the researcher had to find it, the translator had to translate it, but then finally the treasure hunter actually had to go take the risk and find the treasure. You can type it in the chat, you can say it out loud, whatever you prefer.
I
Yeah, I
think
feel
it would
it's
be the
the treasure
researcher.
hunter. I feel it's the treasure hunter that should get the highest cut, because they take the action on what the researcher did to solve the problem, to hit at the problem, and then the translator helped to interpret the problem. But actually, the treasure hunter is the one that took action and should get the cut, but he should also not ignore the efforts of the other two roles, because without them, he wouldn't have done anything, and there wouldn't be anything to implement without those two. So it would be nice to share the cut between the three, while the treasure hunter gets the higher cut. Yeah.
Right, at some point I think the treasure hunter was also running away from a boulder, so I would tend to agree that they should
Yeah.
probably get the biggest cut. It's about the danger, right? It's about actually incurring that danger and jumping into action and actually being the one that does and accomplishes something. Now, the reason that we even tackled this specific conundrum, right? Because we can discuss anything, right? But the reason we tackled this is because I'm interested how you connected this to your own line of work. Who's the
Yeah,
main figure? Yeah, go
For
ahead.
me, I would like to tell you I'm a medical doctor, and I just graduated from master's in bioinformatics. So I've left clinical practice per se and heading into bioinformatics, because I feel that that's where this whole research and treasure hunter thing comes. So as a doctor, you might think we are treasure hunters, but we're not. We're actually doing some interpretation and helping the patients somewhere along the line. But the real thing is the drugs and the treatment therapies and how good they are and who makes them. And those are the pharma companies. And the researchers behind those companies are actually the
good guys, or should I say? Yeah, so we need to like understand the role of each of those people. And as a medical doctor, I felt we weren't having enough treatments that were effective and reliable and affordable or available even. So we needed something. I felt I need to push myself further. So I decided to jump in as a bioinformatician. So I'm someone that is capable. I find myself in a spot right now that I'm able to find the problem with the disease or the health issue, and I'm also able to translate or interpret the problem, take some action on it as well. So, in terms of myself, I find myself in each of those roles, but being alone, I can't I can't face the whole world alone. So, we need to work together as a team, and that's where I think the person taking the action is very, very important, and we all have a role in taking the action. So every one of us chips in something. Yeah, so I think that's my take to the whole issue. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nishat. I really appreciate that. Does anyone else want to share their experience as well or their perspective on this topic? Or perhaps the injustice associated with it if they're
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, for instance, for I'm in the healthcare industry. So, two quick points. As to the last question, who should get it or who would get the biggest slice of the pie? Being in practical terms, more than likely the researcher will get it because, of course, of their reputation. And if you apply that in the healthcare industry, the researcher is well respected compared to the community health worker who's going to have to deliver the information to the patients or to the people who need it the most. So that would be the person who would get the biggest slice, but who should get it probably is the one delivering the message. The second point is in terms of what you mentioned in terms of sorry, forgot the point. Yeah, forgot, sorry.
No worries at all. I totally agree with you though. And I really commend you all. I mean, it's a big main, you typically, right, the main room's the intimidating space, right, people? It's more difficult to speak up, but I do encourage all of you. I mean, this is a wonderful group that we have here. So find it within yourself, jump in whenever you have a thought, whenever you have an idea to share, do jump in. That's what makes this session most exciting and interesting. So once again, does anyone else have any other idea, any other perspective that they want to share before we move on to the next activity?
Our
I mean, if I can
yeah,
just quickly mention
hello.
what I just remember it. The point is, in terms of the healthcare industry, remember, who should get it, and many people were inclined towards the hunter and the healthcare industry that happened during the pandemic, whereby we had the vaccines and they were delivered in for instance African countries, and then they were not actually reaching the patients because of the delivery problem that we had. So we had the medications, but they were not being delivered because, of course, there was a lot of coordination issues or lack of coordination with this.
Yeah,
Michael, I think you were also trying to share something.
yeah. So, to my own view, okay, we see the three entity, but then, just relating it, I feel like okay, the researcher could have we look at the okay trial hunter like okay, one of the person that gives himself to go find the job like he's the main man of the job, but then do you even look at it from the perspective of if the hunt location has been gotten by the researcher and is being picked up? I don't know if I passed that to you. The gem might have been in a certain location and has been discovered by the researcher. You must have gotten a kind of enough information to give out to the trail hunter, a kind of direction, which makes the work more easier for him. Because I feel like if it was not even discovered at all, there's nothing to hunt about. You just keep hunting and hunting. Do you get me?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Christine, I think you were sharing something too. I think I overheard.
Yeah, I want to summarize our team. We decided to split the reward, but in the end, we all agree the treasure hunter take the most risk. So we should split the percentage based on the treasure hunter's contribution. He probably get a little bit more, but he or she will get a little bit more. But we also talked about the researcher and translator. They are a little bit more behind the scenes. So their work might not be putting so much spotlight on, and people might like forget their contribution. So it's really important for them to learn to like show people their work, and then so people know like the challenges they have went through to help support the team.
I personally like that option the most. I mean, I do agree, right? Again, the job doesn't get done unless we have all three components, right? But if there is risk involved, if there's actual, right, health risk or some kind of dangerous activity with regards to any, especially when it comes to right medicine or biomedicine, et cetera, if there's any risk involved in doing the research, in conducting the research, we would agree that the one that's actually incurring the risk might take the bigger cut because it's a health challenge. Of course, it's different in all different cases. I mean, Ifrain proposed a very interesting perspective as well, that the researcher occasionally has a bigger respect or bigger prestige at a higher level, right? They have more connections, they have more experience, whatever it is, filling the gaps, they might be the ones that take an even bigger cut. Now, something that I want to really quickly mention also, which again, we touched on in this conversation, is it doesn't exist without, yes, commend Efrain's thoughtful input. I agree. Now, another thing that actually Efrain mentioned again is the COVID vaccines. I find that the COVID-19, the mRNA vaccine, is one of the most interesting and clearest examples of how cross-disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity in such discipline is extremely important, right? Because when we talk about well, first of all, coming up with the vaccine, right? Doing the research, coming up with the vaccine, and then distributing it, you have so many different disciplines involved, right? Because you have engineering, you have medicine, economics, policy, right? Epidemiology, immunology, nanotechnology, and a bunch of other G's that I just would not have enough time to list over here. But the researchers used the knowledge from the COVID-2 spike protein, designed the mRNA sequence. The chemists developed the lipid nanoparticles, right, to like stabilize and deliver the mRNA. The process doesn't really matter, but the main point here is that you needed all of these different components to actually come up with the final product, and then additional processes and policy work to distribute this product. Now, now that that's out of the way and we're also a little bit more familiar, we can actually start talking about cases that are directly derived from well, thanks to Christine, actually, we have these actual cases. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the case of my PhD. So a really quick story about what my PhD is. It's a system to collect wearable data for biomedical research teams. When the team first built this product in 2020, there were lots of impatient complaints from postdoc students and their research assistants that the system didn't actually collect data fully, or they couldn't find the data, or maybe the application crashed. But there was also a lot of frustration that came from misaligned expectations. Thank you for sharing that in the chat, Kazin. Misaligned expectations of what the software is capable of doing. Now, we're going to divide into two groups. You're going to be the biomedical engineering group. This is going to be random. You don't actually have to have experience, but just imagine the perspective of this group. You're going to be the biomed group, and then there's going to be the engineer group separately. So the biomed team is the one that wants these results, right? You're conducting a study on sleep behavior using the My PhD program, and the engineering group, you're the ones that actually created this product and proposed it to the other team. Now, I want you to really put yourselves in the state of mind of either the first the research group, well, whichever one you're placed in, the research group or the engineer group that's actually designing this. Talk about your strengths in this strengths and weaknesses in this hypothetical scenario, and discuss whatever you think from that perspective could have caused the data inaccuracy. And then finally, most importantly, what do you think the other group is blaming for the data inaccuracy? And we'll take a couple minutes, maybe 5, depending on how active the discussion is, 5 to 10 minutes to talk about it. I'm most keen to hear your answer to the final question, which is, what do you think the other team is blaming for the data inaccuracy? And then we'll come back and then we'll talk about it. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. Otherwise, I will open the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so you want us to choose the team first, or you're going to just randomly assign us?
Great question. So your breakout room is going to be titled either Biomed or Engineer. Let me make 2 groups, actually.
Okay,
we'll have 2 large groups. One will be the Biomed team, and the other one will be the Engineer team. But if you don't like your team and you would rather be on the other team, you can send me a DM really quickly and I'll make sure.
That's fine.
I got you. Okay. Well then, have fun. Hi, Paul. Did you just join?
Hi, yes, I just joined. I'm kind of late.
No worries at
But
all.
yeah, I
Good to
hope
see you.
nice
No,
to
all
meet you too.
good. All good. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for taking the time and jumping into today's session. Now, the teams are going to be talking about, there's 2 different teams. We have the biomedical group and we have the engineer group. Which one do you prefer? Just on a whim, which one would you prefer?
Engineer group.
Engineering group, perfect. Then I'll quickly explain the scenario just to talk quickly about, just to, get you up to speed. So we're talking about an actual case that Kasim provided from the university. So there's a system called My PhD, which is a system to collect wearable data for biomedical research. Now, you as the engineering team, you're the one that actually designed this watch to collect this wearable data. And you have heard a lot of complaints about the data and some data being inaccurate, or maybe the software not being good enough. And I'm going to put you in the engineer group, and I want you to talk about, what your strengths and weaknesses are in this hypothetical scenario, what you think could have caused such data inaccuracy. And finally, most importantly, what you think the other team is blaming for this data inaccuracy. All right?
I think I get it, yeah.
Nice. All right.
So like it's just like a test scenario, yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's what it
good.
is. Yeah. All right. Have fun. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I heard some really good ideas. Now, before I share, the actual story, because it's an actual story, the question that I asked initially was, what do you think the other group would blame for the mistakes or for the data issues? You can also share this for your own group. It doesn't really matter. It's not that I also have memorized who belongs to which breakout room. So you could trick me, that would be okay. But I'm just interested, what do you think the teams would be blaming for the data inaccuracies? So I had a very interesting conversation with with the breakout room that I was in. So I spontaneously decided to close the breakout rooms. Now, naturally, if any of you actually discussed the scenario, I'd love to hear your answer afterward. But first of all, a very important perspective that Fatu mentioned, thank you again, from the perspective of a perfectionist, a very important aspect when it comes to, well, being a part of a team is trust in your other teammates, right? Whether you're a perfectionist, whether you're a lone wolf, right, aiming to do everything on your own, or anything, any role that any archetype that you have, it's extremely important to trust in your team and to have such teammates that you can trust in. The trust is built over time, naturally. It's something like, if you have questions on how to build this trust, I'd be happy to, introduce it as a discussion topic to all of you, because it's extremely important. It's extremely valuable. I agree. It's great insight. So while we're all in the main room, there's one interesting question that I have, that I came up with thanks to this perspective. There's different archetypes, right? And I'm sure, I mean, if any of you come up with archetypes of people that are in teams, let's say, you feel free to write it in the chat so we can factor that in as well. But these are the 4 that I came up with. There's always this one person that wants to get everything done on their own. There's always one person that potentially this lone wolf potentially, steps on other people's toes, or maybe is a little too controlling, or maybe just doesn't participate at all, sits back, right? Doesn't even participate in chats or planning, and just decides to do, just take control of the situation. There's the perfectionist, which we have just mentioned, right? Someone that wants it to be perfect, wants it to be ideal, and doesn't pay attention to deadlines, is more focused on quality of work. There's the over communicator or the over questioner, the one that is kind of a little bit confused all the time, might ask a lot of questions, might ask a lot of clarifying questions that, again, could be disruptive to the process. And then there's the last one that just wants it to be done and wants to hand in whatever it is in the form that it is currently in. So the question here is, these 4 archetypes, which one of these 4 do you think is the most disruptive to teamwork? Same always applies. Type it in the chat. If you're comfortable with saying it out loud, do say it out loud.
I think
Ooh, go
I
ahead.
think it's the one that wants to hand it and be done with it.
I like
Because
this. Go ahead.
that's truly like, if someone just wants to hand it and get done with it, that kind of person will not pay much mind when it comes to the quality of work, and they will not be available. They will not actually be interested in to begin with. So that's a huge letdown for the team, because that's something you cannot fix easily. Unless, for example, you kind of brushed over their reasons for not being interested to work actually and work on something that is like out of quality, not just anything. So that's my answer.
Yeah, in my opinion, I would choose the first one, the lone wolf, which ties back to what you said about trust. Having a challenge, delegating and trusting their workers or their the team members, basically. So obviously they're not going to get much done if they don't work as a team. So I would choose the first one.
I would also choose the lone wolf because there is always someone who is, I mean, everybody is imperfect, and it's important to understand that. So if someone is behaving in a way that they could take on all the tasks in a given project and make them, they would definitely fail at a lot of them rather than bring out the best in them. So it would be a good thing if, I think there's a very easy way to solve the lone wolf issue as well. We could just delegate tasks to each of the member of the group, and the lone wolf will be happy. He'll do their own task, and other people will do their own task. But there has to be some kind of check and balance to correlate each person's results so that the final outcome is not just one person's work, it's the team's work, and everyone has to acknowledge that they work together and they played a part in the um, in the in the project work. Yeah, so that's my take.
Um, so all the characters mentioned here is harmful for the like teamwork. So I would rather will go like all of these factors. For example, a lone wolf. Um, so if someone wants to do all the works at his own, then other team members might feel like he's not cooperating or trusting us. So the second one is perfectionist. So everybody has some lacking, so no one is perfect. So perfection maybe um, may depends from person to person. One might think like I am the perfect person, and the thinking might be different. Our communicator is also if someone's, for example, if we want work in a project and we have like external collaborators. So if someone like try to communicate the collaborator, give the update, and his intention might be to take the credit of yeah, I'm the superior in the team. So yeah.
Can can I comment on something?
Yes.
Yeah, I think all these people here, actually, we work with these people 24/7, and then I think we're missing someone who literally entangles all these people to become one unit. It's difficult to deal with someone who does everything by himself or herself, which is a lone wolf. And then the thing is, they, even if he or she is doing something wrong that is really not what's the ideal thing, would not want to do to get any sort of help. And how do you bring that person into the group? How do you try to communicate? You see, and it's about pride also for them. It's more of a psychology
Yes.
thing also, but I would put that aside. I don't want to go deep into that. With the perfectionist believes like they do everything like he believes that he's the idealness of what is wanted, regardless. He or she believes like if I do it, and then that means this is what it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be, and you should follow my example, which is
Yes.
also not a good thing because you don't give room for other people, and everyone wants to grow. And if it's a teamwork, and it also becomes a challenge because it's more about inferiority. It creates an inferiority complex and the superiority complex that the perfectionist believes like he's superior compared to others, and they put themselves within the smart group, which is also a very difficult part to deal with. And for someone who is like a lone wolf who maybe has some other issues to deal with in terms of collaborating or associating with others, cannot literally try to handle all that. That's why I'm saying, like, I think there's also a need for a person who can try to smoothen the work environment for all these people to literally come all together. The same case with someone who's like who just wants to handle up things and then just go on with the rest, because this person, it doesn't care at all with what's gonna happen. If it's good or bad, whatever he has done, doesn't want to do any more research. This is a pure definition of a lazy person. Like it's fine with me. It's just I want to get the job done, so that's fine. Just this is what I've done. So And these people like this need someone again to like would if he works with a perfectionist, he may gain because he may be taught because the perfectionist teaches a lot. They would want to do that. Can with a over communicator because again the communicator just wish I would communicate, and as long as their message is spoken, they believe like you just follow that up. But the only person I think who are most challenging here are the first two people. But if we are trying to put it in a smooth background where everyone can integrate smoothly, you need someone who is a neutral person, can really um, try to make all these people integrate in a workplace and give out something that is was desired. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, all of you. Innocent, go ahead. You don't have to raise your hand.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you so very much. Um, I love the explanations given so far. I see. I just made a rethink. So I see the over communicator as it could be an issue because when you have a team you're working with whom we are working, you have to give them some kind of trust, even if they are lone wolves or perfectionists or want the work done, because everyone wants to work at their pace and at their convenience. So once we have a communicator, it's just like you are feeding into other people's time, and once you're in people's time, their time to explore their perfections or their time to rethink, it's really a problem for the team. So there should just be a laid out plan for when one has to communicate the duration. But when you over communicate, just like you're creating an issue of mistrust in your team, because it's like doing the work of a perfectionist, because you have to ask this person this question: are you sure you're doing the right thing? Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Are you following up with this? You're also disturbing the lone wolf, who is more productive when he's alone. We have to understand that the lone wolf is sometimes one who wants to be alone to be very productive. One wants the work to be done. You know, deadlines are a key thing. So it's better for you to get when you beat the deadline and do a better work the next time, rather than overstay and there's really a very bad feedback that, oh, you didn't do a good job and rest of them. So the one who wants the work done can be the same person who is also a perfectionist, who looks at things differently and would want to always check it, like if the person wants things to be done at a given time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Definitely agree. I agree with all the perspectives that were shared here today, actually. And yes, Nishat, you're right about what you wrote in the chat. Each of the four characters have some degree of intersection. So the lone wolf could also be a perfectionist and an overcommunicator, or the reverse is also true. Is there anything? But bring whatever's going on in the chat into the main room.
Yeah,
Bring those
I
comments
have a
over
quick
here.
question. I have a quick
It's
question in terms of like for instance in terms of like
mhm.
if we had to choose two players who's going to be affecting the team's productivity and efficiency, which one would have the greatest impact and which one would have the least impact?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
What do you think? And are you all really quickly before we answer this question, are you all comfortable in the main room, or would you rather be in two smaller breakout rooms? Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I
I
think the
prefer the
main room
main
is
one.
all right. I'm okay with both.
All right, then continue here. Perfect. What do you think? Great question, Efrain, by the way. Thank you so much for posing that. What do you think?
I think the most detrimental could be the lone wolf or the perfectionist, either of the two. I'm not sure which one I should choose from. And the least could be the one that just wants to hand it in. Such a person can, like, if I don't know if any of you heard about Jira. So Jira is a kind of platform where you assign tasks to teams and their different people in the team. So if someone just wants to hand it in, he has so many tasks and he just has to hand each task in within the time frame. And if it's not done to perfection, there are so many checks and balances within Jira that will prevent that person from submitting it if it doesn't meet those standards. So there are a number of nice tools that can help people to understand that they're not meeting those standards. So I think the main thing is to understand your own deficiencies. And if you have someone that is looking out for you and trying to build you into a better person, being open to such suggestions are very important. So if, for example, the leader of such a group, if they had a lone wolf, perfectionist, and over communicator, and someone who just wants to hand it in, if they had this really bad team together, they could just say that, okay, let's start by admitting our problems. And then if you don't feel you have any problem, we can pick some things along the way and help you improve. So for the betterment of the team and the outcome of the project. So I think we'll be very lucky to have a good team leader. And that is very key for making the team work, getting things done. I think a good team leader can transform a lone wolf and get the best out of each of these people in this list. So the over communicator can also be said to have some checks and balances. You know, someone could review their template or some kind of transcript that they want to read out in a session or something. And they could practice more. You know, someone who is doing over communication could have practice sessions to help them improve with their communication skills. So yeah, I think the worst could be the lone wolf, and the least person who could be detrimental could be the last one on the list, from my opinion. Yeah.
In my opinion, to answer my own question, I believe that the one who's going to have the greatest impact would be the over communicator, because communication is an important tool, and you need that for you to get support. For instance, funding. So if you say more than what you should, or you you basically speak more than what you should, then you're going to lose the core messages, and you're going to ultimately lose support. So that's going to have the greatest impact, in my opinion. The least probably would be the last one, because it's easier for you to get him or her on board, because he's going to go with the flow basically.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the over communicator has a greater risk to have privacy breach as well. So that's a very big problem. If they go ahead and share classified or break their NDAs, then that's a problem.
I love this discussion, and I hope that the ideas and thoughts that you're gathering and sharing here follow you after the session as well. We are approaching the end of the workshop, unfortunately. I want to take a second to, first of all, thank you all. Like, just I love the energy that we have on the team. I love the personalities that you all bring and the perspectives that you are share and the questions that you yourselves come up with. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's as fun and as enjoyable as the participants and the discussions are, and as active as you make it. Now, for to respect your time and to make sure that we get the best and the maximal value out of this workshop possible, I want to propose sort of a summarizing activity. Now, this will take the form of a Mentimeter questionnaire. Oh, okay, let's we can address this question and then we can do the Mentimeter questionnaire. Stephen asked, I have a question. What if the team leader is a lone wolf or a hit and run individual? Stephen, do you want to clarify what you mean with that? We can take 5 minutes to address this question, and then we can move on to a couple minutes, and then we can move on to the Mentimeter summary. Stephen,
Okay,
can you
so
clarify what you mean?
I think for the hit and run individual, this kind of individual is personally someone who just comes to the field, do a particular part of the work, and then quickly leaves the team without even addressing any progress.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge actually dealing with such kind of person. But again, you cannot have a bad office all the time. So regardless if the team leader is having a lone wolf kind of character, the team eventually may have people who, as again, I'm just trying to adapt to what is it Nishab said? It's also something I said earlier that there is going to be someone who, again, is going to be in a neutral point of view who can bring up the entire team together, regardless if the team leader acts like a lone wolf. But again, so there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be mishaps because if the team leader is like, this means he cannot share easily. And if he cannot share or he cannot easily communicate, there's going to be a lot of things that's going to be missing out there. And it's going to be very difficult to catch up and or to bring up everything to fruition, which is I think is gonna it's a big challenge actually I would say for such kind of person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great challenge, and yeah, this usually what happens. I don't know if it's very common, but what I would think will happen in such a team would be that there will be a pseudo deputy in charge, and that person would be the actual leader. Rather than just having the title, they would be the actual leader in action. Or maybe there could be a pseudo deputy down there coordinating the team and bringing out the results. At least that's what a leader brings into a team. So if the leader is not capable of doing those things, sometimes the team members come together themselves. So to make good outcomes. So sometimes this is what happens, I feel. And yeah, a bad leader always leads to directions that we don't want.
Yeah, in my opinion, one way of addressing those both challenges would be, of course, sharing responsibility and power, meaning that you don't really give all the power to one individual, and you can also pressure the individual to or hold him or her accountable by having checks and balances as well.
And sometimes the team themselves can advocate for extra meetings with the team leader to coordinate themselves. Sometimes not everyone is flexible, so when they need a little bit of push, even if it's a leader, they can make improvements. So if they are flexible, I mean, if they are pliable to what the suggestions are coming from the team, then I think there's a way forward.
I love the ideas that are being shared. Again, thank you so much for posing the question, Stephen, and thank you so much for this active participation. I feel like this is, it's very interesting to me. Like I've been very interested, and I am still very interested, and I love to hear so many varying opinions and ideas. So thank you for sharing. Now, again, to be respectful of the time, because we only have 10 minutes left, I would invite you all to move over to the Menti link that's in the chat. If you prefer to do it, manually or if the link doesn't work for you, go to menti.com, type in the code. If you prefer a QR code, I can share my screen and pull the QR code up as well. But go to the link and let's start with the first question. This will be our last activity of the day. So the first question is, how can academic teams foster a culture of mutual respect, fairness, and integrity? The purpose of this activity is to come up with as many ideas as possible, just to list them out. It's simply this is a constant and a long-term reflective exercise. We're listing these not because we're going to make a comprehensive list, but because we want to keep these ideas in our minds as we work through problems, as we work on teams, and also put into words the ideas that we have in our minds. So then they manifest, they become real. So how can academic teams foster a culture of mutual respect, fairness, and integrity? So far we have through efforts. Oh, let me share my screen. I just realized I have not been sharing my screen. Apologies. Here we are. So we have through efforts of effective communication, definitely. So effective communication, this involves, clarifying expectations, clarifying goals, roles, timelines, worries, everything. All of these components go into communication, involving all and considering each other's strengths and weaknesses, definitely putting all brains together, right? All brains are better than just a single one because through dialogue, through conversation, you come up with, you come to the as close as possible to truth. Academic teams should keep aside hierarchy, communicate fairly, definitely. Openness and transparency. It's difficult to foster truth in a group without communication as a team is working on problems. 100%. I'm hearing communication a lot. Acknowledging weaknesses and strengths, definitely. Bringing people from diverse backgrounds, being empathetic, creating an environment with where everyone is free to share their opinion. It's a very, very important one because this involves creating a comfortable and safe environment. Educating the team members, explaining the roles. 100%. I love the ideas that you're coming up with, guys. Good job. Setting ethical guidelines, promoting open communication, fair task distribution, huge one, something that a lot of teams struggle with, and accepting that people work differently at different speeds and different rates. 100% right. Honestly, positivity is probably one of my positivity and respect is one of my personal favorites, because when it comes to doing research and running a serious project, people are frequently stressed, right? So then a lot of problems, a lot of communication disruptions, as well as frustrations and difficulty dealing with tasks, comes from stress. So by keeping a positive outlook, by sharing this positivity and by contributing energy to the team, this positive energy to the team, you also give others the opportunity to, reciprocate this positivity, and you deal with stress, then it becomes a mutual experience to deal with the stress as well. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what can you personally do to ensure effective cross-disciplinary collaboration? So when I say what you can do, I'm not looking for just communicate effectively, but more specifically, actions that you can take, like ask everyone a question, for example, or ask everyone their opinion, for example, or stay positive in the face of stress, things like that. This is things for you to keep in mind when you're working on a team or you're working on interdisciplinary teams. Being empathetic, wonderful first answer. I love it. Ask why, understand their perspective, definitely. I think empathy is an answer that a lot of it's at the forefront of a lot of our minds, and it's also one of the most core skills when it comes to any kind of teamwork or any kind of communication between people, is to understand the other person's perspective as much as possible. And try to consider each other's ideas, even though we always have our own biases, our own challenges, and our own strong beliefs. Be positive, encourage knowledge sharing, trust people's capabilities. 100%. Set clear goals. Amazing. So definitely keep all of these answers in mind for yourselves. This is essentially a summary of what the entire session was about. And then the final two questions that we're going to tackle. Oh, be willing to learn from each other. Oh, that's a really good one. Okay, and the final two questions that we're going to tackle are, well, going to be self-serving, I guess, because I'm interested in how you enjoyed the session. If you would like to attend a similar workshop in the future. And then the last question is just going to be, I want you to also think about suggestions about what would make the session more fun for you. So let's just take a minute for answers to this question to come in. Really quick, you just drag it to, from 1 to 5, I think, or from 0 to 5. I'm not sure why it says strongly agree or strongly disagree here, but it's just a 0 to 5 rating. Wow, it's not even changing. Okay. I'm really happy that you all enjoyed the session. It makes me really happy because I enjoyed the session a lot and I loved the energy that each of you brought to the session. So thank you so much. And then the final question is, how would you improve today's session? If you have any feedback, be it positive, be it negative, I'm going to stop sharing so it's anonymous. I guess, or so that you don't feel pressure of being seen. But please do write any thoughts you have, any suggestions, feedback, things that you would have done differently or you would like to have seen done differently. I will be reviewing all of these answers, so to factor in for future workshops. Yes, I believe there is a recording of the session has one, and no worries. So as we approach the end of the session, to anyone that completes the final question, provides the feedback, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to be here, to share the positivity, to share your ideas. And I do hope that you're leaving with either a new perspective, new idea, new thought, or maybe a new friend. But I hope that you've gained something from this session, and hopefully I'll see you again sometime in the future. Thank you so much for being here and have a wonderful day.